Mhm. I will be starting soon. I'm just wrapping up a couple of small things. hello to anybody watching and joining in. So tonight we are going to pick up where we left off yesterday. I was having a little bit of an issue with my go yesterday. There was a slight issue with me actually persisting the data that I had for some reason. It looked like it would save, but it wasn't pulling back any data. There's a couple of reasons for that. Let's just jump into some code here. I hope everybody has a full cup of coffee and is ready to dive in. We're going to be just reviewing what I did yesterday after the video, as well as continuing on with our Discord RPG bot. So let's go into some code. So first off, the fact that these are marked as transient, why I was getting nothing back. In serialization, when we mark a field as transient, that means that it's not being stored in um, any sort of a serialized format. So in this case, it's information that's not exactly being stored, and we could fix that just by getting rid of the transient keyword. However, Spring Data was throwing a conniption fit when trying to persist some transient information. Um, this, however, seems to work. So in the player profiles service, um, in the service here, what I had wound up doing was um, I don't know where I left off, to be honest with you. I added in this date utils into somewhere. I think it might have been in the shared folder I put that. Maybe not. Oh no, there it is, date time. Okay. Network. I put it in date time here because it was it contains a thing just get the date time, which is just simply year, month, date, hour, moment, second. Just a simple way to get that to store it as the created updated time. Now, something that's actually pretty cool that we could do in this is there's a way to get the last user that modified the database or the table. Um, that is something that's actually kind of cool, and it's something that can be utilized well with an annotation. Spring loves annotations, and you'll see people use appropriate annotations, as well as you'll see a lot of people um, sadly over annotate and start giving annotations that are technically a default setting, which don't need to be there, which make the annotation look more cluttered and scary than it actually is. Luckily, Spring 6 took away a lot of that, and you don't need as many parameters in your annotations, because some of these things were like an annotation in an annotation inside of an annotation inside of a notification. It's like, what the hell? What the fuck is the point of that? And the worst was, it was to set a default setting, so it's like, why? Why? I'm really glad they did away with a lot of those, and they kind of helped cut back on the amount of annotations that are used, because quite frankly, Spring has too many annotations. So I added a way in here to mark down the date and time on everything when creating a new profile. And when you're requesting a profile, what I did was I made the variable to get the actual model. And then if by chance the backpack is null, which it seems to be, then I went into the backpack service and I created a way to get the profile based on the model, or based on the model that we got. So now, same idea for your equipment and your bank. And I'm adding these to the model after fetching them from their applicable service. And these all look the exact same, it's just find by, find by. Um, trying to get rid of some of these unneeded open classes here as well. So now let's run our web application, because we do have this as an endpoint. It's also being used down here. However, just to show you what it looks like, because after you do the slash command to create your profile, it gets created, and you just simply get back successful welcome to. That being said, I can sort of show you how that looks. See if Discord opens up properly. There we go. So yesterday, after I worked it out, after you use register, successfully created a profile, welcome to RuneHero. That's what you get once the profile has been successfully created, um, which is pretty simple and straightforward. Now, as for why that came up with a double request, oh, I'm stupid, selected the wrong thing. There we go. Yes, let's talk about that for a second. Okay. So when I built this as a project. The project itself is, I've called it Dis Role Playing Game, but really it's RuneHero. Uh, now that is the project. The project itself consists of, much like any other project, the actual project consists of multiple moving parts that make up the project. Um, so our Discord bot, in our case, is the game client or the game engine. That's going to be one part of it, one part of the project. Now, another part is the API that we have, the RESTful API, the database. Um, that would be here. This is not the website. This is just the RESTful API. This is something completely separate from the website itself. If I was to build a website, it would be under an HTTPS uh, full module, um, simply because it would be something that I'd be doing that would be strictly related to um, something that would be handling a different way, and it wouldn't have a direct access to a database. It would be, again, using the RESTful API to make a call to the database. The network is simply the the idea here is that Discord bot is using our in-host network or the Glade Studios network to make HTTP post and GET requests, and we will make different handlers for the different parts of the Discord bot as we grow. Things like specifically a player profile network that's going to simply handle fetching the player profile, updating the player profile, uh, posting the player profile to the database, things that are specifically related to the individual parts of the network. Um, I typically like to have sort of a parent, and then I would use inside of here, once we start making different implementations of the studio network, we will add a subfolder called IMPL. That's short for implementation. And that's where we'll add in the concrete um, files that simply extend the Gladiator Studios network. But instead of making things like GET request that returns a HTTP response, it's going to be something like GET profile that returns a GET profile DTO, a player profile DTO object. The HTTP shared, this is simply all of the shared resources that both the API and the Discord client and eventually the website will all use, um, such as the data transfer objects. This is simply because when I go to export this project, and we will get to that stage, we're going to do it in a way that when I export the Discord bot, it's also going to require the network, which is also going to require, and it's also, sorry, the Discord bot will require the shared entity, the HTTP shared for its DTOs, and the Discord bot will also require the HTTP network so that it has a way of making requests to our backend RESTful API. The API will, when built, require just the shared files. When we make the website, it as well is going to be requiring its module and the HTTP module. So by making the different modules inside of the project, it helps to sort of keep track of the different services that are inside of the project. This is also a similar sort of multi-module design that most microservices use, given that they have sort of an overall structure and then a whole bunch of different little extra things that could be going on in the middle there as well. Now, does that answer your question, or does that open the door to more questions for you? Now, because there is a little delay while I'm waiting for you to either ask me another question or let me know if that answered your question, um, since this is up and running, The network module is simply containing where we have our composable HTTP client, where we have a way of getting our um, any sort of DTO object as a JSON string for mapping reasons. Um, we have a way to map any data transfer object to a string entity so that they can be put into an HTTP as the body of the HTTP request. Um, and then we have methods in which we can create an HTTP post. We can create that HTTP post and stick a body on it. As well, we can create an HTTP post request with an HTTP client, which just means it's going to actually send the request off and it's going to wait for a reply from that request in the HTTP response format, and it's going to give us a response back. We have a way to make an HTTP GET request, and we have a way to fetch that HTTP GET request. Um, both the HTTP post and GET have headers set up by default, telling the requests what type of content it is and what type of content it accepts or to accept. So this is kind of like the very underlying mechanical part of it all, whereas we will make an implementation class which will be more straightforward later on once we get a little further into the project. But the networking class is just basically taking care of the network requests that the Discord bot is going to make. And I state that right now, and the reason I didn't put this inside of Discord bot is because in the future I plan to actually make this into a cell phone game, so it's going to have its own different. It's going to have a different module for the mobile app. Sorry, I had to choke and die there. Had to choke and die there for a minute. So later on, we're going to make a mobile app, and that mobile app is also going to require a little bit of networking as well. So instead of rewriting all of the network later, I just simply have it set up as a different module so that it's going to be something that I will basically be able to implement into a separate project later on, like a mobile client. Yeah, it's just network related stuff. Anything in here is going to be basically a way to either get, post, or possibly delete. Other than that, um, the backbone sort of RESTful API is the API part. The game client, if you will, is the Discord, and then any shared content that is used between the network and any other module is just simply the HTTP shared. And I use a very similar structure in just about every sort of web app that I make. It's just something that's very familiar to me, and it just seems to kind of help me. Uh, Years of experience have kind of boiled it down that organization kind of helps to not just helps not if some sort of organization does make things look more complicated, but once you understand the organization that is there, you realize just how much sense it makes and just how well it is to maintain the code and future proof it for future developers to be able to understand your code. But honestly, a lot of the time when you're trying to make things make sense, when you're writing proper like conventions and trying to do proper naming, don't try to do it in a way that you're shorthanding the code. Um, Try to make sure that your variable names and your method names are something that is somewhat descriptive of what it is, because that's going to help you when you come back to your own code like 10 months from now after you've been through a whole shitload of other code, make sense of what you've put past you had thought of, because otherwise it's just going to become this like tangled mess when you try to stick your headphones in your pocket and pull out this fucking vortex of tangled wires. Well, it's kind of like what happens when you put away some code that makes sense in the moment, but when you come back to it, it doesn't make any sense. So trying to keep your own sort of proper conventions that you follow helps a lot. So like, don't shorthand yourself on naming a method because you don't want to name the method something ridiculously long. Try to think of something that's just sort of a short, brief elevator description of what it is that it does. You can always tack on a Java doc above that, um, to go into further explanation about what it is if you feel like you can't just sum it up in a couple of words. But for the most part, um, for your own sake, and I say this because I've come back to my own code from like 10 years past and have kind of like table flip moment. What the hell did I do? Be good to yourself, be good to other developers that may potentially look at your code. Don't shorthand yourself on naming conventions. Make sure they make sense. So yeah, now that we have this up, we can make a post or a get request to our controller to request a profile DTO based on just a username. So if we fire up Postman and we punch in our domain and hit the send to get a get request, you'll see that in return we get back the player's profile DTO, which in my case happens to be the username, my email, an encrypted password that would be the decrypt password that we had from what we passed in, my Discord user ID, as well as a list of player skills which I did not populate. We can see that the player backpack has no inventory items in it, the equipment has nothing in it, and the bank has nothing in it. And we can see when my file was created and when it was last updated. So that means with get um, our find method here, or our get mapping for the player profile, is working as we intended. Now, there are other hmm, thanks, Shaz. Again, I've a little bit about myself. I got my first PC in '97, my family PC in '97, and I went down the rabbit hole of how technology works. By the year 2000, I had an interesting code. I was reading over little batch script files, trying to understand them. I was writing my own little batch files, and it was fun. Um, by the year 2008, I was just getting out of high school. I had opened up my own tech company for doing tech repairs. By 2011, I opened up my second company for doing software development, freelance pro project, offering things like pen testing, cyber security, um, and pretty much things kind of continued there till about COVID. When COVID hit, things kind of slowed down for me a little bit. But I have over 20 years experience in a variety of programming languages. I can comfortably navigate 16 programming languages. I'm very comfortable from front end to back end to deployment, and I love to share. I have mentored quite a few developers over the year, from developers who are now full stack developers, front end developers. I've mentored people who are now working at EA Games. I've I've always enjoyed mentoring people, but I've always enjoyed keeping my own anonymity. And it wasn't until earlier this year that I had decided I'm going to try to step out of my box and try to share my knowledge and my teaching with other people. And I finally decided that YouTube would be a great way for me to try to share that. So, what, maybe 2 months ago, I decided to start this channel up as a programming channel where I would just simply stream anything that I'm writing, um, come up with some random projects to write to show people how to do things so that I can explain them in a way that people can see with example. And my idea is to teach people to code, teach people to do design, from game design to software design to security design. I want to help people learn technology and programming. And if you're new to programming, my best advice is to learn one single language. Once you can learn one single language, it makes reading other languages easier, so that when you can read other languages and you know how to write one language, writing that language you're now reading seems to become more easy and make more sense to you. So don't try to be overwhelmed and thinking, oh my god, I need to learn Java, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I need to know all these things to be good. No, don't overwhelm yourself. That's going to make you get overwhelmed. It's going to make you quit, basically, because it's too overwhelming. Learn one language at a time. One. Keep it simple. Learn one. Master one. Learn others. It's the easiest way to do it. Java was the first language that I actually sat down and took the extra time in my life to learn, and it has allowed me to be able to read and understand and write other languages like SQL and Ruby, Kotlin, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Uh, what else? There's Ruby and Python. I have a list of languages that I've sort of, I'm not going to say mastered over the years, but I could get myself by. And I'm extremely open. I'm very, very open and transparent with any kind of questions about code, about learning, because I love to teach, which is the whole reason behind me creating this channel and trying to expand my own community, which I do have the Discord community if you're not in it already. Um, I'll have to get a link to it, but uh, I'm very open with everything, really. And I'm very open to being somebody's mentor. So long as people are willing to learn, I'm willing to teach. But also to tack onto my background, I've worked in network administration. I've worked in different areas of doing pen testing and cybersecurity. I've I can set up a database on Docker running on a Linux machine very easily. I'm very comfortable with Linux. I'm very comfortable on the terminal. Docker is probably going to become your best friend later on in life if you don't know it. Um, it's it's hard to explain just how great of a service it is, but it's something that makes deployment very easy and takes away a lot of the redundancies of things, and it basically gives you a containership of Linux VMs that run underneath one sort of thing. If you could picture a container ship that's like full tilt with a whole bunch of containers, every one of those containers is basically like a Linux VM, and the overall ship itself is like your Docker container, and you're able to orchestrate a whole bunch of microservices in a very organized fashion. um, from scheduling to executing events to even just updating, launching, spinning up new one. I can go on about Docker. It's a great it's a great thing, and it will be something that I will be getting into later on in the, one of these series. Also, if you think my videos would be helpful to anybody else or any other one of your friends or even just a fellow developer, by all means, like share me around to some of your friends. If you think that, even if you think that maybe my videos might not be quite useful, but I might be useful to somebody else, like feel free to share me around. Like I'm very open to helping people learn. I'm very open to teaching. Um, I'm very new to the whole streaming and video world, so like there's probably going to be a few hiccups in these first few months of my career as a streamer, but other than that, I'm not gonna lie, I have what over 50 subscribers already, and it kind of blows me away that I have what I have. Like I'm honestly shocked that there's more than that there's people more than that there's actually people that are interested in what I have to say. Like it sort of blows me away a little bit. Yeah, I'd love to sit down and discuss anything with you, anything at all. If you have an idea for an app that you'd like to kind of play at on game for live streaming it, if you want to sit down and chat with me on a live stream someday and just kind of talk program, I'm cool with that too. So now that we have a way to register our players, um, if anybody has actually seen my Discord bot, um, let's have a look here. Let's just show you because if nobody's actually seen the Discord bot that we're doing, you're about to. It's pretty cool. So I already started my work, so I gotta come over here to do this. But this is the bot that we're redoing. It's called RuneHero, and the idea is after you've registered, you're gonna be able to hit My Hero, and it's gonna come up. Fuck's sakes. Well, apparently I need to get more. Apparently my Runeverse Discord needs to have a few more boosts on it. But anyway, it tells you what your class is. That's supposed to be a class ranger. So it's supposed to be this emoji followed by your name and your combat level. Down here is supposed to be a bank supposed to be a bank emoji telling you how much money you have. Your working status, whether you're working or not. In my case, you're not. My hero has completed a shift, and it tells me that adventurer Glabe, level 68, has returned from a long shift. And then it tells me that I've gained X amount of money and X amount of experience. Now, from here, I can check out my profile. I can see what level I am, my account information, I'm level this, I've got a total experience of this, and I'm only like 7,000 XP from my next level. My player profile tells me that my class is a ranger, and there is the ranged emote. It tells me that my job title is the King's Guard. My base wage is 25K an hour. I can go into work to see my working status and start working. I can go into skills to see my skill tree and see what level I'm at here. So I've got almost 50 range. I've got 22 mining. I've got a defense level of 38, fishing level of 32, 33 cooking, 0 blacksmith, and a total level of 245 for a total experience of 833. I can see what's in my backpack, which apparently is just a little bit of food and apparently some equipment. I can check out what equipped gear I have. The equipped gear I have happens to tell me that, my PvP stats. So this is how many people, player versus player, I've killed or died to, how many monsters I've killed or died to. It tells me what's in my quiver, my head, yada yada yada. My equipment bonuses, I have a maximum hit of 11. I can have a maximum dodge of up to 15. So this is what the fun bot is that we're going to be making over these course of these nightly sessions that we're doing. Um, and again, I can go explore, which allows me to explore the region that I'm in, which just so happens to be Ice Mountain. It tells me my local mobs are an imp, a goblin, a monk, a black knight, a wolf, a dwarf, and a wolf. Some skilling information. I can cut some trees here. I can travel. Choose a location I want to travel. Let's say I want to go into Falador. I can see that there's more things to do here. There is a tavern and a general store. So I can view the markets, which one I want to go to. I can go to the store. I can see what the store has, which apparently is a hammer, chisel, knife, fishing net, fishing rod. I can see how much it costs me. Apparently some of these emojis are not working, so just ignore that for now. But I can see the cost. I can come in here to buy it, see what I want to buy, or I can go over to sell and see what I want to sell. Sell off some items. Look at that, I sold back for 66 coins. I can come in here and see what I got here. Mithril bolts. We'll sell those off. Go back to exploring. Maybe I want to get into some combat, so we'll go ahead and fight a guard, maybe. And again, this is the bot that we're going to be remaking, and it's going to be something really cool, and it's something that's going to be sort of interactive for the users in your Discord guild. Um, this will be a public bot that anybody can invite into their guild, and you can play this in any guild that you like. Um, as we go, as we develop this, if anybody in the community happens to have any feedback and wants to sort of, hey, let's try adding this in or let's do that, by all means, you can give some feedback. We can do this. You'll see it after I kill a mob that there is two rows. One has explore and rematch, and the other one is the drop log, which is going to be what gets dropped by the mob. In this case, it's generally bones are the default thing that gets dropped, but also you'll eventually see that some of these have other things that they drop. If you happen to have food on you, so that you can eat while in combat, there will be the name of the food that you have that will come up underneath the embed message. Ooh, I got a loot chest. But you can pick up the bones, the loot chests, whatever else it drops, and as you can see during the fight, there will be a button that says the name of the food that you have um, in your inventory. And at any point during the fight, you're feeling low on health, you can click on that shrimp button or that food button, and it will regenerate you some health. Um, it's going to be a really fun bot once we're once we do it, once we get more into the sort of the meat and potatoes of it. But if any of you guys happen to know the game RuneScape, this is sort of a fan-based game based off of the old school RuneScape, and this is um, I have pretty much implemented the entire free-to-play area, so you can explore all of Gielinor. You can explore um, you can do things like fishing and skilling and cooking. You can chop trees, burn logs. You can travel through the dungeons. You can explore Entrania, Karamcha, go through the dungeons to fight some lesser demons. Like it's a pretty cool fan-based game, and um, I'm looking forward to sharing it with more people. But I'm also looking forward to sharing the knowledge of how to build something like this to hopefully inspire somebody else out there to build another type of even RPG game or whatever type of game they want. Some future plans for this that I have. One of the developers that I mentor, I was working on this, and he had actually pitched an idea about what if in a busy chat channel where there's lots of people talking, if there's a chance that a wild boss mob can spawn. So the idea is that we're going to be having our bot listen to chat channels, and basically, whenever a chat message is sent, there's going to be a very, very rare chance. Um, and I say very rare, and it's going to be rare this, but we'll say, for example, a 2 in 10 chance that a private mob will spawn for that person, which will just be an informal message that will pop up, letting the player know that hey, a wild goblin has spawned, and that person can kill it. And there might be a 1 in 10 chance that, say, a King Black Dragon or a God Wars dungeon boss or a world boss will spawn up globally for everybody to attack and join in on and kill for some good loot. Um, the idea is to drive more, I guess, engagement to people's Discord servers that want to participate in this. Um, there'll be a way that the Discord owners will be able to turn on and off world boss spawning. Um, sort of. It's sort of like a text-based game that is basically utilizing Discord as a game client. This is also why I want to make it into a mobile app so that some functionality can be kept as a Discord bit, but um, I want to get rid of some sort of limitations that I have by making it into an actual mobile client or a mobile game, and then just have Discord be that way to interface with it. But in the meantime, um, it's kind of like playing with a 2D game before you play with a 3D game. We're going to play with a text-based game before going into a mobile game, if that makes sense. Now the other idea. Sorry. Now that would have been smart of me to have a high level design diagram of this, but I don't. That would have been too smart of me. I mean, it's not a high level diagram, but I got a whole bunch of sticky notes on my wall because I don't have a big enough whiteboard. Um, but I've got sticky notes all over like a 5 by 5 foot space on my wall on the side of my office. Um, that being said, I was debating on throwing together a Trello board for this project and making that Trello board a public thing that people can go and view, keeping track of lists of what needs what needs to be done overall, the sort of the tasks that need to be done, what is being worked on, and what sort of commits on GitHub are going to be connected with each thing. Like I was debating on making um, a Trello for this. Yeah, like ultimately when you kind of think about the design of what it is that I'm doing, it's crazy basic. Like it really, really is. It's a very basic design. Um, the Discord bot itself is going to take care of anything that a typical game engine would take care of. So when a user hits um, that Discord button, and my buttons are set up that, and I'll get more into how I did this and why, and like the reason behind it. But because your key or your ID of a button can be up to 100 characters long, um, what I did was passed in a short identifier, and then I had concatenated the ID of the Discord user as well as additional sort of metadata, if you will, into that um, ID as sort of a concatenated string with specific areas in there that I can use, or characters in there that I can use to sort of decrypt information from. So the idea is that when the player and when any Discord user clicks on a button, um, like let's say for example, I'm playing with my embed, and you click on my button, you're going to get an immortal message or an informal message saying that, hey, that's not your action to play with. That's not your button to do anything with. Because I'm concatenating and putting in some metadata to identify the owner of the button so that when it's clicked, what I'm doing is I'm taking the key, taking off that key identifier word that I'm having, and then I am using the specific I'm going to be using the specific characters that I have to then split the string up into an array of uh, essentially string data, to which I'm going to be parsing that in to be telling me who the button owner is and other sort of metadata that I've been passing in there so that I can then check who clicked it. If their user ID matches with the button owner's ID, then go ahead and do it. Do the action. Otherwise, send them an embed message that just says, hey, that's not your button. Um, it's kind of a design pattern that I came up with on the fly when I was originally designing this RuneHero game, and I basically apply the same sort of design pattern to all of the um, all of the um, publicly viewable embed messages and buttons and select models because it just makes it a lot more, I guess, convenient um, for being able to parse it down, and because otherwise I'm looking at making them all in ephemeral messages, which then becomes basically a private bot game, and it didn't really feel very engaging with the community if everyone's sort of standing in a circle with their head down playing on their phone versus this more interactive sort of um, way of letting it be a public embed that everybody can see what people are doing. Um, it was some of the design things that I went through over my head when I initially had designed this game, and I will be talking more in detail about the specific design patterns that I chose and the reason why I do what I did, and how I did what I did. Um, but essentially, we're going to be rebuilding what I have so that it's going to be cleaner than what I have. Because trust me, the way I wrote it was a mess. Um, but I'm going to be rewriting it much more cleaner so that I can also record myself doing it. And the idea is that I simply just want to, um, in a way, I guess, document the design of this game. This specific bot, the RuneHero one, is not going to be open source just because it is going to be a game that I'm designing. I'm just so happy to be live streaming the development process of it and all of the code, or majority of the code. However, my other videos that I have are all open source projects. That being said, I live streamed a different Discord bot called Shitlist, and I have to wrap that one up. And also, when I wrap that one up, I'm going to be showing how to package the project into a runnable jar file, and as well as how you can go ahead and run that from any terminal. So that might be my next live stream uh, because there's not a whole lot left on that project. Yeah, this one here is, well, technically I haven't actually uploaded any of um, this code to GitHub yet. But once I do upload it to GitHub, it will be a private repo. Um, I'm not planning on. It's not to say that it's not going to be open source. I'm just not planning for it at this time to be open source. The closest to open source it's going to be is what you see on live streams that I'm going to be doing. And I mean, I will be getting into extra layers of security and how we can go ahead and implement layers of security because there is no when we talk about security, there's no 100% foolproof plan to say that you secured something. Um, Security, much like any sort of even a bank, security does not guarantee nothing's going to get in. It just guarantees that it's going to take somebody a while to dig through the layers to get in. And that's basically all security is just putting up layer after layer after layer after redundant check and redundant checks and redundant checks. Um, for example, one layer of a security is the fact that we're passing in a null or we're passing in an object, um, but security doesn't necessarily mean blocking somebody making a malicious attack. It also means things like blocking your program from crashing to a null parameter that was passed in. And because this is an endpoint, and anything can technically make an HTTP request to it, the parameters that come in very much so could be null. So to prevent nulls from happening, we can simply handle things like checking if the DTO object is null. Then we can respond with an applicable option that there was no body provided with this method. And we can just simply then give a HTTP code of no content. We can tell this request, we can tell the parameters here to request specific headers so that we can say that we want a header with the key of API key to be valid. And then we can check the API key um, if it is within our database. If it is and it's valid, then continue. If not, then stop it right there. We can have it inquire or pass in a cookie. We can have it pass in even like a bearer token, like a JOT, like a JSON web token, JWT, which simply contains an access token to tell us who they are, what authorities they have, as well as a life token, which is the important part of that. And I will get into talking more about that level of security when we get into more of that content. But JSON web tokens or JOTs could be passed in as a bearer token, so we could be checking that, say a header with the key of bearer exists. Take that token, validate that the session is still live so that we know that the token is still good, and then we can validate the authority of the token to make sure that it hasn't been tampered with. And then, of course, if all of that is good, we can then check the authority and the access to see, okay, does this requesting user have access to create a new account? Do they have access to find and pull this specific user? And we can get into how to add more in-depth security to your open API ends. Because just because you don't tell anybody that there's open APIs or open API endpoints, um, a lot of malicious sort of black hat people will, and I say this from experience, being a pen tester, they will scrape random domains, including random IP addresses, for any and every type of concatenation of words for an endpoint and essentially scan to find an endpoint. So even if you happen to put, like right now, I have no security in this whatsoever other than checking that the DTO is not null. If somebody was able to actually assume that I'm using the path of API version 1, and then they assume a bunch of words after that, and eventually find something that gives a return that's not a 500 or a 404, um, then they know they found something accurate. And that's how they would then start dumping or trying to put in random parameters to try to figure out and play around with and test the waters to see what is in that endpoint. Now, by requiring specific things like request headers or specific things to be like username as a path variable or the specific actual body to be a body or request, like I said, headers. Um, those are all layers of security that you can do to help. And that being said, this would be where you would go ahead and add the headers too if you wanted to make a make a get request that has an API token in it. You would then add in here API key and then maybe the token, provide the token as a parameter for whatever it gets called. Like for example, right now it gets called down here but never gets used. But we could make this pass in a variable of an API key. Um, and I realize I'm kind of dragging that talk on for that one, but I will at some point in the future I will make a video more about security and how to go about implementing security and how honestly how Spring makes it very easy to implement security. Like I'm not gonna lie, I was impressed going from somebody who used to write just straight out would have write out all the Tomcat server and more or less do this without Spring. Spring itself makes web development so easy, so convenient, and so streamlined that it's actually fun to do. Um, and I used to be primarily just standalone software and network. I used to never never like web development. 5 years ago, I got into Spring, have been following it ever since. Once Spring 6 came out, it took it to a next level and made it even easier. Um, and it just blew me away, and I was sold. Um, I realized that I spent this entire live stream so far pretty much just kind of rambling and talking rather than creating or writing anything. It's kind of funny. Oh well, I'm having fun. I hope you're learning something too, by the way. Okay, so I'm glad. That makes me happy that you're learning a lot. And honestly, my live streams were more aimed at trying to be more interactive teaching than just teaching or just strictly coding. Um, that's why I record videos. I record the videos to do specific sort of teaching, but like don't know, I like live streaming. I like the engagement. I like being able to I don't know. I like being able to kind of talk to other people, I suppose, while I code, and like I like the being able to answer some questions and give examples too. Like it's I don't know. I'm enjoying myself as we go. Alright, that being said, I need to make a quick little break. I have to run to the bathroom, so I'm just going to pop us into a little coffee break, and I will be back in just a moment. And I'm back. And thank you. Yeah, I try to do my best to reply to each sort of any sort of interaction that's directly towards myself. I try to do my best to interact directly back. How long have you been programming for? Are you relatively new to programming, or have you been doing it for a little while yourself? So this is me wow, creating an implementation of the Glave Studios network. This one here is going to be a way to create um, as well as I'm going to have another one which is going to have a way to get uh, yeah, get player profile for username. Um, and this is what I meant by don't be afraid to use descriptive names, because what does this method do? Well, it gets the player profile for a username, and I'm providing in a username. This one here is going to create a new profile. There are going to be some parameters that are going to be passed in that, because I technically am doing it here. Um, which essentially essentially does this. Hmm. I might just pass in the event. So that create that in the DTO. So I taking that. Right, you're not in there. Son of a bitch. Player profile network, that's gonna be strictly. Oh. So now I've added the. So what I wound up doing was adding a network file to our Glave Studios, which is containing the player profile network, which is an extension of the Glave Studios network, which is taking in this here and we're just going to put that in the same damn thing. Now I'm going to go ahead and pass in as well. What DTO am I passing in with that? Profile DTO. Oh, okay. So there's that. And when I call create, this is going to just, okay, this one is just returning a string. Well, what am I doing with all that crazy shit there? Okay, so here we create the DTO, and then the event that we're going to reply with is going to be create DTO, which is in the player profile network, and it returns a string. Takes in a DTO object because then we're going to map this to the create method. We're going to get the string body and stick that in as the body request of this method, and we are going to be returning um, um, and we are going to be returning a string based on the code that came back. Otherwise, if something else is wrong, then something totally went sideways and wrong. Yeah, okay. So that's going to take care of creating a profile. Now, as far as getting a profile, um, so the next bit that we're going to be doing here, let me just think for a second here. Yeah, okay. I feel like I should have done this differently. Okay, so we're gonna have two of these. Get player profile for username or Discord ID. Okay. So now we're gonna look to get this by the Discord ID. So we're going to do profile find username find Discord ID. Okay, so now I'm looking to kind of pick at making um, the get request for getting the player. Um, this is just going to be a straight up get request and parsing the return object. Alright, so when we make the call to this handle model submission is going to do that. Get nothing is using that yet. So we're going to be looking at making a command called myHero, which is, for all intents and purposes, um, going to um, get an instance of our player profile. Okay, so next from here, yeah, we'll need to make a command, yes, for myHero, which will essentially be making the get request to get the hero, and if we are not null, um, then we're going to want to essentially load up the hero's interface, if you will, or just design a hero first off, which will be um, a representation of our player. Now, okay, trying to figure out how to best go about this because this is going to be in our Discord portion. Um, we're going to make there's going to be a game packaging in here because this is going to handle anything in the game engine relations. And first and foremost, there is going to be an entity. The entities are going to be handling anything such as items, NPCs, and players. Now, the NPCs and players are basically mobs or mobile entities. So we're going to call that a mob package, and then we're going to call a player package. I know that seems like an awful lot, but you'll be able to see my design here in a second. These are going to be empty packages for now, but I mean, again, it's just to demonstrate. It's just to demonstrate the specific. Um, may or may not have may or may not have some props in there. So essentially, our game is going to handle anything in relation to our game engine or our game logic. So that would be things like content and anything in there. Uh, so here is where we're going to start to define some things. First and foremost, we need to define what a hero is. So we will be coming down into our game class, our entities, our mobile entities, because there will be a happy medium that is going to be the parent of these two. And there's also going to be one that's going to be a parent of it called entity. But anyway, inheritance is beautiful. So in here, first and foremost, we're looking to make a new package, and this one is just going to be simply called Hero. Mhm. And now the Hero class is going to need to technically extend our network because the hero itself is, and it's hard to explain this in the early stages, but hear me out. It's going to be extending um, the Glave Studios network. How did I build that? Okay, no, it's going to be implementing the network. Um, in that case, it's the player profile network. It's going to be actually technically accessing. And this is going to actually have a required args constructor. There will be a private final um, player profile DTO, which we're just going to call the here DTO. I'm trying to remember how I did this to how I can make it what it is. Yeah, this is where it gets fun. Okay. Okay. So, so our hero is going to have a couple of things in here. It's going to have a way to get their equipment, their storage, and their backpack. Because these are all okay. So what has to happen now? And I'm not 100% sure it's going to happen 100% on this live stream because there's going to be an awful lot of redundant code being generated right now. Generated, typed, I mean, typed out, and that means I'm going to be silent for a long time. Oh, excuse me. We have a player profile network. We now need to make a a player backpack network so that we can make get requests to fetch the backpack, as well as to make a post request to update said backpack. We also have to do the same for the equipment and do the same for the bank, um, as well as for the skills, the player's skills. Um, so we need to make quite a few network interfaces here so that we can essentially interface with our Collaborate Studios network, which will essentially interface with our backend web server that we've been building for the last 2 or 3 days. So that helps you kind of visualize it all. The backend that we have, we're going to have a network API or like a NIC network interface um, that's going to be interfacing or interacting with said backend. We're making more concrete interfaces that are going to work with that generic interface to reach back with our backend. Um, that said, we're going to be going from, we're going to be making a bunch of different interfaces to handle the get and post requests so that we can get and update the different inventories our player has, as well as the different skills our player's skill tree is going to have. From there, we're going to be adding to our hero class um, those different inventories because our hero um, is essentially when we create a hero or when we call a hero, when the player makes a slash command to my hero, it's going to then make a request to the player's profile to see if they first have the profile. Um, and I'm probably just going to wrap up this live stream for now, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do off the stream, and then we'll come back and I'll show you my implementation of it because it's getting kind of late. It's like 2 in the morning for me. And I've got stuff to do at like 8 in the morning. So I'm gonna call this the end of this stream for tonight, and I'm gonna be writing some code probably tomorrow morning when I get up in relation to the more network interfaces, um, so that we can then truly create different inventories in our hero class, um, which will be gotten upon in a lazy loading sort of fashion, as in we're going to get them as we request them. We're doing that because every time the player does the slash command, we're going to be getting their profile, and we're going to assign their profile to a hero so that we can make methods in our hero class that will alter our profile DTO object as well as be able to implement some local logic. Um, that's the idea behind having this hero class. Um, because the player's profile is one thing, whereas because of object-oriented programming, a hero is something that is different than the player's profile. A hero could have a player's profile, but a hero cannot be a player's profile. The hero contains a profile as well as it's going to contain a few different inventories. We're going to make a way to access inventories. We're going to make a way to access the actual profile DTO, but we're going to be implementing some methods for which we can manipulate some things with the heroes DTO, such as going ahead and giving them experience and or equipping an item or doing this or that. We're going to be getting more into that as we go, but I'm going to be, as far as what I'm going to be doing off the camera, it's just basically what I've already done, but I'm going to be doing the stuff that's redundant. Um, so tomorrow night when I stream, we will go over and talk about different the different interfaces that I make and how they're going to be implemented, so that then we'll worry about the different hero methods that I'm going to be putting in. So, if you haven't already, if you haven't already subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button so you can be aware when I start my next live stream tomorrow. I assume at this point you have. I think you're the only one that's watching right now. Go ahead and hit me, give that a like if you enjoyed this live stream. I will pick things up tomorrow, probably a little bit earlier than tonight. I might do it tomorrow at 11 o'clock Eastern. Yeah, 11 o'clock Eastern. Um, yeah. Um, thank you very much for taking your time and watching me tonight. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. It's been a pleasure. You're very welcome for everything you've learned from me, and I thank you for your time. Your time is something that is it's something that's just priceless. And I'm assuming I will see you tomorrow night.